These are the brand new Nike Structure 26. They've had a complete revamp compared to the 25 with a brand new midsole, new stability features and a new engineered mesh on top. I'll break down all of these features so you have a better idea if it's worthwhile upgrading for you. So if we look at the midsole first on the version 26, the Cushlon 3.0 that we saw on the 25 has been replaced. We no longer have the air zoom in the forefoot either, and it's all been replaced by the React X foam throughout the whole length of the midsole. So that's that soft bouncy foam that we saw in the Nike Vomero 18, but it feels completely different in the Nike Structure 26. So it's a little bit firmer than we see in the Vomero. It's definitely not as soft, not as bouncy or springy, definitely not as responsive either. So it's more of a stable version, a bit more balanced. When you apply pressure to it, you sink into it a little bit, but then pushes you back out again. But it doesn't have that kick to it, that spring to it that we see in the Vomero 18. So it sits somewhere in between the Cushlon and the Vomero 18 in our opinion. It's maintained its 10mm drop with 38mm in the rear foot, 28 in the forefoot, so just a mil extra compared to what we saw in version 25. However, they've slightly different weight, with 361 grams in a US 12 in a Structure 25 and 353 grams in the same size in Structure 26. So they've added a little bit more stack, but they've managed to make the shoe a little bit lighter, and that's probably because they've got rid of the Cushlon and replaced it with the React X foam. And when we look at the stability features in this shoe, they've modified it slightly as well. So while we still have the midfoot support system underneath the medial arch of your foot, that feels different because the cushion's a little bit softer than what we saw in the previous model. So in the Structure 25 we could really feel that press up into the arch of your foot. So those of you who enjoy that support under the arch, they would have been a big fan of 25, but because the cushioning is a little bit softer in model 26, I don't feel that pressure up into my arch, that support under the arch of the foot as much as we felt in that previous model. In contrast to that, we've got some more lateral stability as well. So you can see we've got a very large sidewall on the outside of the 26 that we didn't have in the 25. So that's just providing a little bit of lateral stability on the outside of your foot when you initiate contact with the ground. And we still have a broad base support, however they've changed the outsole configuration. So in model 25 we had that waffle outsole, where we've got some hard durable rubber around the heel up towards the midfoot, and then some lighter softer rubber in the forefoot. So that means that the shoe is relatively flexible in the forefoot, which facilitates a nice push off. It also has a slightly different forefoot rocker than 25, so it's a bit more aggressive and has a little bit more toe spring. So those of you who aren't familiar with that, that's where your toes are held in slight extension, and that facilitates a nice push off phase of the gait cycle. When we move on top of the shoe, we've got a new engineered mesh on top of the Structure 26, and we've got a similar fit in the toe box and in the lens, so it's a true to size for us, and slightly wide in the toe box in a normal fit. At the moment it just comes in a normal, but the previous model came in a wide and extra wide, so I'm sure that's to follow. We've got a slightly different lacing system on top of the shoe as well. We've got a thick semi-gusseted tongue on the 26, while we had a moderately thick non-gusseted tongue on the 25, and we've got a lot more padding around the heel cup on the 26, so a bit more focus on comfort, whereas it was a little bit less cushioning on the model 25. We've got a little bit more flexibility around the heel counter on the 26, while it's still moderately stiff. Then when I talk about the performance of the shoe, when it comes to using it for lifestyle use, walking around, standing for long periods of time, I think it's an excellent option if you're looking for a shoe that has a little bit more stability, because you don't have that prominent arch support underneath your foot, but you have got this really big lateral sidewall and the medial sidewall towards the midfoot. It keeps you really centered in the shoe, so it's a bit more like a modern technology guide rail system that we look for in shoes, without having that guide rail built into the midsole itself. So it's really comfortable if you're looking for a slightly higher drop with 10 mils, and you're happy to sacrifice the weight for having that extra added element of stability. So I classify it as a mild to moderate stability shoe. That extra softness in the React X foam just making it more mild, as opposed to it was quite a moderate stability shoe in the 25. Then when it comes to running and performance, yes, it's a little bit softer on the foot when you initiate contact with the ground, but it doesn't have that stability that we saw in the 25. I'm not sure it's any faster or turns over any quicker, because it's still quite a heavy shoe. So if you want a shoe for doing easy runs, 10k, 15k or longer distances with a little bit of stability, this can be an excellent option for you. If you wanted a shoe to do faster workouts but still have some stability elements to it, you might look at the Hoka Rai 7 or the Asics GT 2000. This shoe is just a little bit too soft for that, a little bit too heavy in our opinion. It doesn't have that springiness that we see in the Vomero 18, despite having that React X Flex midsole. So if you've got any questions on them, please drop them in the comment section below. We've got links to the shoes in the description if you want to check out the latest prices. Otherwise, if you found the video helpful or interesting, liking, sharing, subscribing does make a massive difference to us, and thank you very much for watching.